Morning, Jenny. We're just getting started, so I'll give you a few minutes to get your video working. It's in the bottom left-hand corner as well as your speaker, but I just want to start by welcoming everyone this morning. My name's Kayley. I'm the Vice President of the Hastings Business Women's Network, and welcome to our regular Monday panel session. So we've got some participants on today, and obviously we have some listeners who are accessing this via YouTube in your own time. So I just want to say a big good morning to everyone on the 1st of June, which is very exciting. First day of winter, a beautiful day here in the Hastings, and also a very exciting day for us in terms of some of our restrictions being lifted. And Janette from the tourist aspect is going to talk very excitedly about that with us today. But before we get into all of that, we are going to start with our update from our local member, Leslie Williams, who is going to introduce herself and give us an overview from a state point of view. Thanks, Leslie.
Oh, thanks very much, Kayley, and welcome to everybody. And it is a beautiful morning out there. And yeah, for those who don't know me, Leslie Williams, the state member for Port Macquarie, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to participate in these panel sessions. And I know that from the feedback, people have been really appreciative of the information we've been able to provide. Yes, first day of winter, but even more exciting, of course, it's the first day of some significant easing of restrictions, right in time for the long weekend coming up. And hopefully we'll see some visitors to our region. We'll start seeing really some more activity that's going to have a positive impact on our local economy. So I'll just run through very quickly the restrictions that are starting to be eased of today. Obviously, pubs, clubs, cafes, restaurants, they can all now have up to 50 patrons. However, of course, they do need to still comply with the 4 square metre rule. So depending on how much space they have, that will impact on how many people they can have in their facility. Fantastic news is that people can now travel for holidays. So that's a significant easing of one of the public health orders, because previously that wasn't an acceptable reason to be on the road, was for holidays. But as of today, you can go on holidays, and hopefully a lot of people will take that on board and head either head north or down south to visit us in the Port Macquarie area. Up to 50 people can now attend churches or attend a funeral. But still only up to 20 guests for the attendance at weddings. We'll see our zoos, including, of course, Billabong, I think is planning on opening on Wednesday. Aquariums, reptile parks and so on all be opening this week. I know we've all got women sitting in our panel today, so I'm sure they're as excited as I am looking at my nails that we can now go back to our beauticians and tanning, waxing salons, nail bars and so on. Camping grounds and caravan parks are now open, and so too will be museums, galleries and libraries. The other one that's not on that list, and you wouldn't have seen publicised, and I'm sure Janette will be very pleased to hear that we've had a change to the public health order over the weekend, and we have changed it so that tour operators that are operating diving tours, snorkeling tours, whale watching and so on, where they're on a vessel, obviously really difficult to comply with the 4 square metre rule. So there is a specific health order that Brad Hazard signed on the 29th of May to cover them. So that's really good news, and I'll make sure I get the details to you, Janette, so you can distribute that as well. I'm just going to say that I think I visited a couple of clubs over the past week. They are really, really working hard to make sure that they can comply with all of the restrictions, and also making sure that all of their patrons are safe and of course that their staff are safe as well. So I'm really pleased about how things are progressing locally, and I'm very confident that we're going to get through this you know, without too many further interruptions. I have spoken to the local health district today, so it's now been 34 days since we've had a positive case in the Mid-North Coast Local Health District, which again is great news. But I guess my message in closing is that to remember that we just can't be complacent. Social distancing must still apply. And the one thing that hasn't changed is the rules around gatherings. So you still are only allowed to have 5 visitors to your home at a time, and only 10 people gathered together outside. So there are still some restrictions in place. We need to make sure that we comply because we don't want to go backwards and we don't want to have to put restrictions back on that we've already taken off. And of course, from a state perspective, the New South Wales government is continuing to try and invest, particularly in infrastructure. We want to make sure that the 200,000 or so people who have lost their jobs during COVID can get back to work. Obviously, they've been supported by the federal government with things like JobKeeper, but we want them really back at work because we know that when people are productive, it's really good for their whole mental health, but it's also great for our community and great for our economy. So you may have seen yesterday, the Premier and Deputy Premier announced a $3 billion boost to create $100 billion infrastructure and jobs pipeline. So we'll get more information about what that looks like, specific what sort of infrastructure projects may be able to be brought forward in our local community. And, as I said, the whole aim is to make sure we can get people back to work. But in closing, just want to wish you all the very best for the week ahead. I know for many of you who are in small business, it is a pretty significant week, and I hope everything goes well. But as usual, if people need information, whilst my office door isn't open, we are here to help, and my website continues to provide a whole range of links, but quite specifically now we'll make sure we put the industry links on there. So people who are starting to open up, there are places you can go to find out more specific information about your industry and what your COVID-safe workplace should be looking like. Thanks, Kayley.
Thanks, Leslie. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming every week and giving us that really strong message straight from the source. And I'm mindful that Leslie needs to go in a moment. So I just want to check with our participants and other panel members and see if anyone has any questions for Leslie before we let her go.
Leslie, sorry, Janette. I'm excited for the cruise boats and all those dive boats and everything. So I will look forward to that so we can get onto them as soon as possible, because I know they've been really hurting as well.
Yeah, well, I can send you, I've just received the copy of the actual health order. So I'll make sure I get that to you and any additional information that you can provide them.
Thanks for that.
No worries.
Sounds like they'll be very, very busy if they want to maximise that in time for the weekend. So great news for them. And I'm sure they're going to get lots of support from people like yourself, Janette, in order to get ready for the weekend. So thank you so much, Leslie. Good luck with your week as well. And once again, thank you for just continuing to join our panel. It makes a big difference to us.
Yeah, look forward to it. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Leslie.
No worries. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, so it's an exciting day from many point of view. We also have, it's the 1st of June, which means that a lot of our local businesses are able to access JobKeeper for the month. So we might go to you, Sandra, because that's your area of expertise. And if you can start by introducing yourself and maybe just remind both our participants today and our listeners what this means and what steps they need to take.
Okay, certainly. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me. My name's Sandra Magann. I'm the Principal Accountant of Seachange Accountants. We're an accounting firm usually based in Gordon Street, but our team's been working from home for the last 2 months using the technology that we love to help businesses. And for the last 2 months, we've been pretty much wrapped up in JobKeeper and helping our clients and the businesses work out whether they're eligible and what the steps are to make sure that they comply with the JobKeeper rules and the record keeping requirements. So today's an important day because it's the first day that we can actually claim for the May JobKeeper payments, which you can do via the business portal or if you're engaging your accountant or tax advisor to do that for you. It's a fairly simple process. You need to just reconfirm that your business is eligible for JobKeeper, state whether or not there's been any change to your eligible employees, and then report your turnover. So you need to report your turnover for May and also what you project your turnover will be for June. And then from there, once that claim or that monthly report's lodged, it should take about 4 or 5 days for that reimbursement for the May JobKeeper payments to hit your bank account. I just wanted to let everyone know if any businesses are using Xero, there's some pretty good tools in Xero to help you work out this turnover. I will share the links in the chat box, but they're also on our website for anyone who is interested, and we've put a little video together on how to access those tools, which will help you work out your actual turnover and also your projected turnover for the coming month. And also just a reminder that the enrolment for the JobKeeper for April and May closed last night at 6 p.m. However, you can still enrol for June onwards up to the end of September if at some point you qualify, or even if you find out that you did qualify for March or April, you can opt in as long as you do so before the fortnight that you intend to claim for. So the next fortnight that's coming up is fortnight 5, which ends on the 7th of June. So if you qualify and you've paid your employees the minimum amount, you can still enrol before that date for fortnight 5 and onwards. So that's
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate you sending the links and sharing all the tools that are really useful. So a big thank you for that. Any questions for Sandra before we move on? No. Remember, there is that chat box if you want to ask the questions as we go. That's absolutely fine as well. Cara, any updates from your point of view? If you want to start by introducing yourself, talking a little bit about if there's any news from a grants perspective.
Hi, my name's Cara Dale, and I run Seachange Consultancy here at Lake Cat. And just like Sandra, our team has been working remotely for the last couple of months. Basically what we are is we identify grant opportunities and ways to effectively and efficiently engage with government. And one of those is to share knowledge of up and coming grants. So there's been a couple of changes. The $10,000 COVID-19 grant from Service New South Wales, which was to support working capital, it was due to close today. It's been extended to the 30th of June, and they've also increased the criteria to support more businesses. So guidelines have been changed, they've been updated this morning. So just be aware that if you weren't eligible on Friday, you may be eligible today. The other thing is the Bushfire Industry Recovery Package, which is designed to support 6 industries at this stage, which is forestry, dairy, horticulture, wineries and agriculture, as well as bees and honey. That is open at the moment, and that's grants. There's two grants. One is sector development. So if you're trying to rebrand, identify new opportunity, strengthen your business, there's development grants available. And the second one is supply chain. So also this week, there'll be some further announcements expected from both the state and federal government. So Leslie touched on the acceleration fund that was announced yesterday afternoon, and finer details of that will roll out in the next week. And the federal government is looking to bring in a construction encouragement grant for new builds. They're also talking that it can be for renovations on existing homes. And so it's not necessarily for first home buyers. So there'll be some further announcements happening during the week, but this is an evolution. Every day there's changes. And the one thing I can always say is don't self-exclude. So COVID-19 is a prime example that there's been significant changes over the weekend and encompassing more industries and businesses to that grant. So that's the update for this week.
Great. Thank you so much, Cara. Always a really good update from you, because it just sounds like there's more and more available to local businesses. So thank you for continuing to keep us updated. Okay, so a big welcome to our guest panel members. I can see that both of you are very excited. I know, Janette, it's a very exciting day for tourism. So why don't we let you introduce yourself and talk to our participants and our listeners about what today means for tourism here in our local area.
Thanks, Carly. And Janette Hyde, and I'm from Greater Port Macquarie Tourism. It is a wonderful day because we've got nearly 200 members and 75% of them were not operating. So gradually that's starting to happen. The cafes and restaurants have been doing the takeaway. Now you can go to one of those facilities and you can have a cup of coffee with your friends, and up to 4 people in one go. Bookings are essential for all of the cafes that are open. But just to let you know, in the background, Port Macquarie Hastings Council is responsible for our marketing, and there is a campaign out there saying play in Greater Port Macquarie. So we're trying to encourage people to come, because we know that we're only 4 hours from Sydney. We've got so much to offer. So we're saying, you know, just come. Leslie mentioned the Billabong opening on Wednesday. I thought it was opening on the 6th, but that doesn't matter. That's wonderful news. They've been doing it very tough because they were really struggling to feed the animals. So the grant that was coming from the government hasn't arrived yet. Cara might be able to say a bit more about that, but it hasn't arrived. So they've been working on donations and adopting koala, and they really had run out of cash flow. So it's really great that they can open. One of the big things, I think, is visiting friends and relatives. We've all got friends and relatives who come to Port Macquarie. So encourage them to come now. Accommodation can take bookings, which they couldn't before today. And they may even stay with you. But we've got so much to offer again that if your relatives can come, or your friends, that's fantastic. That's one market for us. One thing that I think it's really important, and it's shown through everything, is looking after our local businesses. So if you can purchase from people locally, that's the way we need to work. I just think basically what we're saying is it's an exciting day for tourism, and you'll find a lot more businesses opening up and available to you. Happy to take any questions, Carly.
Yes, thank you, Janette. It would be great if anyone has got any questions for Janette.
Not a question, but just to add to that, Janette, we still have restrictions on how many people can visit us at home. But my understanding today is that in restaurants and cafes, you can have a booking of up to 10 people. So certainly encouraging friends and family, if they're here, to go and meet and have a meal at a local restaurant or a cafe will certainly help those businesses along, and we can gather in bigger groups there than what we can at home. So it's certainly a good incentive to do that.
No, that's great. Thanks very much, Kelly.
That's great. Thank you so much, Janette. And there might be some more questions for you as we continue, because sometimes we think of them a little bit later.
No, that's cool.
Thank you for that overview. Okay, let's go to you, Brooke. If you want to start by giving an introduction of who you are and your team. I can see some of them are here today. And an update on what's relevant and what's been happening in your space would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me this morning. So I'm Brooke and I'm from Liberty. I'm the Domestic Violence Prevention and Awareness Specialist, and I also do some training internally of the team. So in the domestic and family violence space, we have seen a reduction in referral numbers, and that was expected both locally and nationally. Obviously, it's very difficult to report at the moment with people self-isolating at home. And there's also other factors to consider. So when there is economic and health uncertainty and disruption to daily life, many will prioritise the safety or stability of the family unit over safety in this time. But what hasn't changed, or what we've seen an increase in, is the way that people are getting information. So although referrals are down, we've seen a 37% increase to state government domestic violence pages. There was a 20% increase to the 1-800 RESPECT line. And No to Violence have reported a 23% increase to calls. That's men self-reporting, concerned about their own behaviour. What was also reported on that No to Violence was that there was an 18% increase in the length of time that people were spending on these call lines. And so I guess what we're seeing as well is complexity in cases is increasing. It isn't a simple, not that domestic violence was ever a simple scenario, but certainly requiring more support. So people are still getting information. We know that people are still experiencing domestic and family violence, especially women, and we know that as soon as restrictions start to ease, which is good news from today with lots of things changing, that women will be reaching out for support for our service. So what you can do as a small business and as a member of our community is to stay in contact with your contractors or subcontractors, anyone that you do business with, to make sure that they are okay. We also have a social media campaign happening at the moment with Liberty, so any support that you can provide around sharing that information, sharing our posts and letting the community know that we are still here and ready to support them when they're ready for that. And those of you who might not know that Safe Work Australia have released a number of guidelines around domestic and family violence with their COVID-19 information. They talk about 8 different things that workplaces can do. And the ones that are probably relevant to the members here are, as I said, staying in contact, noticing, paying attention, checking in how people are. And perhaps if you're having meetings now that cafes and restaurants are open, is having those meetings rather than via Zoom out in public. We know that sometimes home at the moment is not a safe place. So offering alternatives to have those meetings can be really useful. The other thing is providing education and training. So helping us all be more aware of what are some of the signs of domestic and family violence and the ways in which you can safely respond and support any disclosures. And I think the one thing I want to emphasize here is with this situation, it's really important if someone is experiencing domestic and family violence that you're a safe person in which they can reach out to. And so we really look at no judgment, really listening to what the person has to say, believing, and then connecting them in with places like Liberty who can support them. So really looking forward to that. So we're currently working with a lot of workplaces around helping them strengthen their domestic and family violence response and support internally and to improve their awareness in this space so that we can make our community safer for everyone. So the good news is, you would have heard there was some additional funding announced, but when we spread that over the number of specialist services in New South Wales, you know, it won't be enough. We're already supporting more than we are funded to. And Minister Speakman spoke last week about the long-term effects of a recession that is coming. And I guess even though from COVID, we are sort of starting to see some recovery, the opening up of restrictions, we've still got a long way to go. We know economic impacts do impact domestic and family violence, among other things. So really looking for that ongoing support and how we as community members can, and business owners can support those who need us.
Wow, that's some really important messages there, Brooke. So thank you so much. And I think it's very relevant, and I think that you are speaking to not only the people here today, but the people who listen to this panel discussion on YouTube are very passionate about what you ladies do. So I think they'll be really interested to hear that, and it will just bring it front of mind for everyone all over again, which I think particularly as people start to emerge from homes and so on. So I think that was really important. So big thank you for that. I'm just going to go to questions, and I can see that we've got one in the chat box. Any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. But one of the questions for you, Brooke, was whether you could share some links for Safe Work South Wales and also for Liberty Services. So what we can do is we can put those links in when we share the YouTube, as well as the links that Sandra, you've been kind enough to put here in the box as well. So that would be great. Any other questions for Brooke, or any questions for anyone from this morning's panel discussion?
Again, not a question from me, but I just want to thank Brooke for sharing that information, because I think it's really important and relative at the moment that we recognise that even though restrictions are lifting, a lot of people are still working from home. I was working with a client over the weekend who told me that his employer has advised them that they still must continue to work from home up until September. So I think it's really important that we recognise that there are still those restrictions in place, and we need to be mindful and aware that we provide opportunities for people to access information and, as Brooke said, a safe space for them to communicate if they need to.
Totally. Yes, definitely. I mean, that's definitely the public health order at the moment, is that if it's still reasonable to work from home, then we're still working from home. So your message is totally relevant. And I think, you know, it goes back to what we were talking about when we heard Leslie as well, is that when we start to see our amazing tourist operations starting to reopen, hospitality starting to reopen, people probably coming here for the long weekend, it's going to send us the message that that it's over, and we know it's not over. And Leslie's message is very strong, that we can't be complacent, because many people are still working from home, but also it's not over. We're just, you know, having the luxury of having our restrictions eased due to a big decrease in cases. So Leslie's message around complacency, as well as understanding the restrictions and still working very hard to make sure that we do the right thing by ourselves and our community, is really critical. I can see one more question. Oh yeah, so that's the link. Thank you, Brooke. So what I'll do is I will save this file, because it's got a lot of great links. And so those of you who are listening to the recorded session, you will find these links on the YouTube, but also you'll find them on our website. So go to our website, and Kelly's going to share these important links. They're popping up all over the place. So feel free to send as many links as you like, and Kelly will upload them all to the website. But I just want to check in and see if there's any final questions before we wrap up for the morning. No, we've got quite a big group today, so I just want to say a big thank you to both Brooke and Janette for joining us. It's just wonderful to have special guests on our panel. We get sick of our own voices a little bit, and I know that our members and our listeners really like the diversity of having extra people. So thank you so much for those two important perspectives. Thank you, Cara and Sandra, for just continuing to turn up every Monday morning, because both the landscapes in which you talk about continue to change every week. And so it's really appreciated that you keep updating us on the source of truth when it comes to deadlines, and making sure that we don't exclude ourselves from help that is available. So a big thank you for both of you for starting your week with us. And thank you to our participants for logging in, because otherwise we're just talking to ourselves. So it's great to have some actual faces. I can see that there's no more questions. A few thank yous. So thank you for saying thank you. And what we'll do now is end the recording and let everyone get on with their day. So to all of our members and our listeners who are listening and watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching. We're going to stop the recording now, and we hope to see you soon.